Alright, Theo. You can do this. Don't let it beat you. Transcendental, transcendental, transcendental. I nailed it. I am so ready for this video. What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different for the Sunday video. Instead of taking a look at a character, we are going to be taking a look at the Transcendental Being set, which was released with the Boss Syndrome banner about a month or so ago, and kind of comparing it to other card sets and taking a look at its usability and its viability in PvE. So before we go ahead and jump into it, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Helps me out a ton as a new YouTuber. But first and foremost, what we're going to do today, and I'll kind of give you guys an agenda, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this card set itself, and then we're going to go into championship training and use Omega Rugal, Boss Syndrome Orochi, and then Lady Zero, which are the only 3 boss fighters available in the current pool for championship this week, and we're going to attach this set along with other card sets that are popular in the meta and take a look at just raw numbers. So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to do one full rotation of skills. If a character has a cooldown or an automatic cooldown reset on their rotation, we will be adding that into the rotation, but we will not be factoring in resets due to card sets such as the Leah set, which would majorly skew the numbers. We already know Leah set is going to be better than this set, so there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about that, but we're not going to be doing that just for the sake of making the actual damage numbers as comparable as possible. So that is going to be kind of the general ground rules of what we do when we do the damage tests. Now obviously there are going to be a few things that could skew that, like for instance RNG with crits, and then also as it pertains to, like for instance an Akane set, if it's RNG procs and you get the effect of it, that could skew its numbers a little bit. But I went through and I did quite a few runs of each one of these card sets to get a good kind of aggregate average of the damage that these characters are each outputting with those cards, and then put those in here so that you get just a good flat average. So that way it's as accurate as possible. Of course, you can't ever account for just general RNG, but I digress. So let's go ahead and take a look at Transcendental Being first, which is the most fun card set in the world to say the name of. I'll tell you that. I'm going to have fun trying not to slip up on Transcendental throughout this video, but wish me luck, guys. Anyway, as far as what the card set does, it's going to give you a flat increase to your attack by 7%, and then it is going to give you an additional 14% if your character is a boss fighter. And then it is going to have the PvE exclusive, which is relevant to what we're talking about today, which is going to give you 2% power when a boss fighter uses an active skill on a 1-second cooldown, so you basically have that continuously throughout the fight. Each card has the same increases to the same stats of 7% to attack, so nothing changes from card to card there, as you can see here. So basically that is going to be what we're doing. But yeah, when it comes to this card set, overall, the biggest thing that it has going for it is going to be that PvE exclusive of gaining 2% power when a boss fighter uses an active skill. That is very, very nice. And as far as characters that are going to have the boss fighter tag, that actually extends itself to quite a few characters. And I'll go to my roster and I will show you guys who those characters would be, because some of them aren't as straightforward as others. When you take a look here, you'll see that you have your general characters you would already assume are going to have the boss fighter tag. So that's going to include like your original Zero here, he'll have it. And then if you go back and you take a look at, for instance, Gonitz, he's going to have it. And then of course Ignis is going to have it. And then a couple of characters that you may not expect or may not initially think of at first, like for instance Mr. Karate has it, and he can definitely do well with this card set. And then Orochi Iori also has the boss fighter tag. So there's quite a few characters that can take advantage of this, and it's kind of nice to see that it does have a lot of versatility across kind of the roster. Obviously for general PvE it's very nice, but when you get into comparing it to other card sets, it doesn't necessarily give you as much kind of effect as it does other sets. So, for instance, if you look at a Leah set, which is going to obviously be the first card set that anybody is going to think of when they talk about the best card sets in the game. You know, a Leah set, in general, is just broken, and it's just better. Now, you'll see that it does have 1% less of an increase to attack on its effect, but the 30% chance to reset your cooldowns on all of your active skills, that alone just makes the Leah set better. And that 1% makes no difference whatsoever at the end of the day. You'll be able to see in the numbers it's pretty much non-existent as far as a difference in the damage output for these sets. So it's still nowhere near as good as a Leah set, but in specific situations where you need the extra power to kind of get you through, if you're trying to spam finishers and things like that as much as possible, it obviously could come in handy there. But even then, it becomes a question of, okay, well, would I gain more power if I just reset my cooldowns and rotated my skills again? Well, yeah. So it's one of those things where it's kind of 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, or it's going to be Leah set leaning. But then when you get into the Akane set, as far as it's comparable there, you will see that the Akane set also does not give you as much of attack increase, but it does have that 30% chance to deal the extra damage equal to 150% of attack upon landing an active skill, and then that's not even including the immunity that it gives you when your HP is 1% or less. So overall, the Akane set is still very, very strong, but really the PG gain on this card is going to be what sets it apart from Akane in that regard, because you obviously want that again for specific instances in PvE. Now, another set that I compare it to in this video that I'm not even going to say that, I almost didn't put it on here, but I know a lot of people still have it and still do use it, because obviously newer players, intermediate players are not going to have this card set, but a lot of the veterans do. So I figured I would throw it in there just so they could kind of see the damage output numbers by comparison if they haven't already run them themselves. But you'll see with a Tekken set, you're going to get the increase to attack by 6% and the increase to the critical rate by 10%. It's also going to increase critical damage by 50% on all active team members, including the caster, obtain 3% power upon landing a critical hit. So the Tekken set is still busted, and nothing really changes that. Just saying. So it is what it is with this set. It just gives you so much with that effect, being that it gives you that extra increase to your critical, and all of your team members, including the caster, get that extra 3% power upon landing a crit, and there's not even really a cooldown to speak of on it at the 1 second. It's great. So yeah, I mean, overall, Transcendental Being is a really nice card set, but I don't feel like it really sets itself apart too much from these other sets in kind of damage numbers and so on and so forth, to the point where it's necessarily flat out better. But let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the damage numbers, and we'll kind of compare and see how they all kind of pan out. Alright, you guys, so here we are in our damage comparisons. So like I said, I'm only doing a general rotation, and as I said earlier, if a character has a reset on a cooldown, I do add that and factor that into that rotation, but I will not be factoring in any other additional effects from, say, a card set like a Leah set. So there you see the damage output for the Transcendental Being set. Moving on to the Leah set by comparison on Boss Syndrome Omega Rugal here. You're going to notice that there's not a huge difference there. As you'll see there, it's very minute. And I did run these quite a bit just to kind of confirm that these numbers were as accurate of an average as possible. And they were definitely within just a couple hundred damage points of each other. So this is going to be the Akane set here. And yet again, not a huge difference whatsoever. So again, the 1%, 2% difference that comes in with the effects of these cards really doesn't make a huge difference, as we said, and mathematically that should be the case. So definitely holding up there. And then with the Tekken set here, this is where you'll see the numbers be a little bit different. Obviously the Tekken set is not going to be as much of a sheer raw damage number card set. It's more about the effects. So with that one, it really comes down to, with these card sets, what you're doing in PvE when you're using them, as far as which ones that you would generally be using. It really does come down to just what it is you're trying to accomplish. But then we get into the Noah set, and predictably the Noah set does tend to lag behind just a tad as well to some of those bigger sets that you will see the most use out of in just general gameplay. So that is going to be the Boss Syndrome Omega Rugal comparisons. As you see there, basically Transcendental Being does more damage than the rest of them, but not by a whole lot. So moving on here to Boss Syndrome Orochi, we're going to take a look the same way that we just did with the Boss Syndrome Omega Rugal and compare the numbers. So you will see the Transcendental Being set, that is going to be kind of your general damage output for this set on him. As I tried to do with each one of these characters, I tried to do 2 rotations apiece, and you'll notice again with things like crits and so on and so forth, the damage can differ just a tad. But like I said, I tried to get as much of a good average as possible and pick that footage to put in here. So this would be your Leah set, and this is going to kind of be the damage comparable here, and kind of the same difference here. It's going to be a very minute difference in damage output for that set versus Transcendental Being. Moving on to Akane. Akane here is going to do very comparable damage, obviously, but there is going to be the RNG aspect of an Akane set as well that you can't really account for. So, you know, with Akane there is a potential of more damage, but it really comes down to RNG. And then you take a look at the Tekken set here. And again, this is going to be a set that, because it has more of a effect-heavy kind of approach to what it's doing for your character, it is not going to have as much raw damage output, but again, comes down to what you're trying to do when you're picking these card sets for whatever mode you're in. Then moving on to a Noah set, again, predictably, lagging just a bit behind, but not a whole lot, so that is pretty much going to be the Boss Syndrome Orochi comparison. Again, not much is uncovered here compared to the Boss Syndrome Omega Rugal numbers. They're pretty accurate across the board, and you'll see that kind of bleed into Lady Zero Original here as well. And again, we will take a look at the Transcendental Being set on her first. Now, Lady Zero in general really likes this set just because any more damage that she can output is just a big fat cherry on top when it comes to what she is capable of. She is a damage nuke if there ever was one, so giving her any more damage is definitely welcome. But you'll see there her damage output, and then compare it to a Leah set here. Again, very, very fine difference. Now, obviously, if this is PvP you're talking, a Leah on your Lady Zero is going to be the way you want to go every single time. Leah on Lady Zero is just silly and ridiculous, and you should always be attaching that card set to her in PvP. But again, we aren't using PvP as an aggregate for this. We're really just looking at our PvE scenarios where this would be useful. So an Akane set, you'll see, actually does very well with her as well for damage. Now, obviously, the RNG plays a role here, so getting that extra 150% damage there is very, very nice. But you move on to a Tekken set, and then the Tekken set, again, predictably lags behind on damage. So really not a whole lot of variance. You'll see that the kind of differences here between these characters with these card sets is very fine, very small. The Akane set being the hardest one to gauge because it does have the RNG aspect to it. But I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys these damage comparables, and then you'll see the Noah set here actually does a respectable amount for her as well. But all that being said, now that we've taken a look at kind of the differences here, let's go ahead and do an overall kind of summary of what we think of this set. So, do I feel like this is a must-have card set? Well, no. I don't think the Transcendental Being set is a must-have. I think it's more of a luxury set, so don't feel bad if you missed out on it. And if it does rotate back around, I do think it's worth trying to go in on that card banner in general, because the Rugal option is very strong. So overall, that was a pretty nice banner in general, but I don't feel like this set necessarily you have to break the bank on. Now, it does amazing damage on some of the boss characters in some of these different modes, so over time it has a very nice damage to it in some of these different things like the guild raid and things of that nature, so I really like it for those things. But that's my opinions on it. You guys let me know yours in the comment section down below if you have this set. But I will see you guys in the next one. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.
Continue.